Hello, and welcome to this important online module, Special Education Basics for General Education Teachers, brought to you by the Northern Kentucky Cooperative for Educational Services. Thank you for taking the time to invest in your professional development and, most importantly, in all of your students. In our time together today, we have a packed but essential agenda. We are going to begin by briefly looking at the timeline of special education in the U.S. to understand the why behind our current laws. Then we'll dive into the practical slide, the steps to eligibility for services, the different disability categories, and the specifics of educational plans, namely IEPs and 504s. We'll spend some time detailing accommodations and modifications, a key responsibility for all general education teachers. Finally, we'll wrap up by talking about preparing for an ARC meeting and how NKCES can assist you in this crucial work. By the end of this session, you should feel much more confident in a few key areas. You will have a better overview of different special education and different plans like IEPs and 504s, a clear understanding of the process for students to receive services, familiarity with the Kentucky disability categories, and a practical tips for preparing for ARC meetings. Our goal is to move you from feeling overwhelmed to feeling empowered. At this time, you have the option to refer to your resource sheet and find the video that's on slide 4. It is the Rita Pearson TED Talk on relationships. Rita Pearson is a renowned educator, 40 years in the field, and she had quotes like kids don't learn from people they don't like. And really, the foundation of her work in education was building relationships with students. She challenges us to be a champion for all students, and I feel like this is a wonderful way to set the stage for our learning together today. Now that you are back from feeling inspired by Rita Pearson, we're going to talk about an instructional strategy called a KWL chart. In your resource page, you have the option to print yourself a KWL chart so you can collect your thoughts as a note catcher as we work through this module together. KWL is a wonderful strategy to use for students of all ages. They have a space to record what they already know about a subject, what they wonder about a subject, and then later to reflect on what they've learned about this subject. Please use your resource sheet now and print that chart for future use in this module. At this time, please refer to your resource sheet and play the video, The History of Special Education by Frank Avello. In this video, you learn that the history of special education is critical because it explains why our current system is built on legal mandates. Before the 1970s, many students with disabilities were entirely excluded from public schools. The landmark legislation that changed this was the Education for All Handicapped Children Act in 1975, which eventually evolved into the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. IDEA ensures a free, appropriate public education, or FAPE, in the least restrictive environment, or LRE, for every child with a disability. The links provided on this slide give you access to the full history of the U.S. special education laws and information to Kentucky special education laws specifically. This framework is not optional. It is the law we must all follow. And if you like the artwork of Frank Avello, who is an artist and teacher, please feel free to follow him on YouTube on @teachingsinEducation. You can find a link to his work on the resource page under slide 6. He has a multitude of videos on different subjects, and he has a lot of videos on special education specifically. Please take a moment now with your note catcher and think about, what do you know already about special education? As a general education teacher, I'm sure you've had a lot of experience with special education students who receive special education services, and ARC meetings. So if you could reflect on what you know about special education. I also would challenge you to take a moment to think about, what do you wonder about special education? What are some of those nagging questions that come up through the year that you're like, why do they do it this way? And take a moment just to reflect on those and record those now. Now that we've set the stage for learning and dug into the history of special education, we're going to take some time now to really dive into the heart of our learning. We're going to be looking at the steps for students' eligibility for special education services. We're going to be reflecting on the different disability categories that are recognized in the state of Kentucky. We're going to look at the components of educational plans and modifications and accommodations that can be used in your classroom. Lastly, we're going to be talking about preparing for ARC meetings. At this time, please refer to your resource sheet and click on this video entitled "The Special Education Process," listed on slide 9. As you learned in the video, the process to receive special education services is structured and clearly defined. It typically starts with a referral, often by you, the general education teacher, due to concerns about a student's lack of progress. Next is a full comprehensive evaluation. You may be asked, what kinds of data do you need to collect for an initial evaluation? Your data, behavior logs, work samples, attendance records, and intervention notes are crucial pieces of the puzzle. That data, combined with the academic and cognitive assessments, determines a student's eligibility. The evaluation team reviews the data to confirm two things. First, that the student has one of the defined disabilities, and second, that the disability adversely impacts their educational performance and therefore requires specialized instruction. If eligible, an IEP is developed and services begin. You can review the full details on the Kentucky Department of Education website, which is also linked to your resource sheet. An important part of the eligibility process is determining the disability category that the student qualifies for. At this time, please refer to your resource sheet and watch the video on slide 10 with the categories, 14 categories of students with disabilities. In this video, these disabilities will be defined. You will learn about their individual characteristics and some common teaching strategies for students with these disabilities. It's important to note that under IDEA, there are 14 federally recognized disability categories. Kentucky uses all of these, sometimes with slightly different terminology. It's important for you to be aware of all of them, but you don't need to be an expert in the diagnosis. What you do need to understand is how that disability manifests in your classroom. For example, a student with a specific learning disability may show a difficulty in basic math skills or math calculation. A student with other health impairment might have limited strength, vitality, or alertness, such as ADHD. We have included links on the resource page for deeper dives into the categories of autism, emotional behavioral disability, and speech and language disability. Remember, the label simply unlocks the specialized services. Your focus is on the needs that each individual student has. At this time, you can refer to your resource sheet and click on the link for slide 11, and it will show you a sample of a Kentucky IEP form. The Individual Education Plan, or IEP, is the heart of special education. It is the legal document required by law for identified students. In Kentucky, IEPs follow a standard format in all districts and schools and are typically accessible in Infinite Campus. When you see a student flag in Infinite Campus for students with services, you know that student has an IEP. The IEP outlines the student's present levels of performance, it sets annual measurable goals, and it details the specialized instruction, services, and supports the students will receive. You are legally responsible for implementing the parts of the IEP that fall within your classroom. It can be easy to confuse the IEP and the 504 plans, but it's important to know the distinction. The IEP is governed by the IDEA law. It is for students who require intense plans with measurable goals and specialized instruction because their disability adversely affects their educational performance. It requires a comprehensive evaluation, including academic and cognitive assessments. The 504 plan is governed by the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. It is also a legal document, and it provides accommodations for students who have a disability that substantially limits one or more major life activities, but it does not require specialized instruction to access the curriculum. It often includes modifications and accommodations, but it does not include measurable goals or specialized instruction. It can sometimes be obtained based on a clinical diagnosis alone. Both plans are critical and both require your attention. At this time, please click on the link on your resource sheet for the modifications and accommodation videos listed for slide 11. This is really where classroom application of the IEP comes into play. The difference between modifications and accommodations is vital. Accommodations change how a student learns. They level the playing field. Examples include extended time on test, preferred seating, reduced distractions, or a calculator for a math test. They do not change the content or the expectations. Modifications change what a student learns. They change their curriculum expectation. Examples include reducing the number of problems on an assignment, simplifying the vocabulary, or grading on a different standard than their peers. If you are ever unsure, always default to the language of the student's plan. We have a student case study activity linked to your resource sheet, which provides examples to help you practice differentiating between accommodations and modifications. We have worked through a lot of information about special education in the United States in this module. At this time, take a moment to reflect on something you learned today about special education. At this time, you can access a resource folder on ways to prepare for an ARC, either by using the QR code that's attached here or the link that is attached on your resource sheet. The Admissions and Release Committee, or ARC, is the team meeting where the student's eligibility is determined and their IEP is developed or renewed. As a general education teacher, your participation is not just optional, it's crucial. To prepare for an ARC, number one, bring data. Bring your students' work samples, intervention logs, behavior tracking, and any documentation that supports their current performance in your classroom. Number two, be prepared to share. Be ready to clearly articulate the student's strengths and weaknesses in your classroom. Number three, focus on instruction. Frame your input in terms of instructional strategies that have worked and have not worked for this student. Number four, ask questions. If you don't understand a goal or service, ask for clarification. Remember, this is a team effort. You can find more comprehensive resources like a link to a YouTube video and several articles in the resource folder linked on this slide to help you prepare for ARC meetings. Thank you for participating in Special Education Basics for General Education Teachers. We hope that you've learned a lot. If you have further questions, the IDEA team at NKCES would love to help you further. Another great resource are the special educators in your building or at your district level. Thank you, and we hope you take this new information as an opportunity to be champions for all students in your classroom.